We don't know where the trade situation is going to go. We don't know where the situation is going to go in the auto sector. Earlier today, Industry Minister Melanie Joly promised some developments on Stellantis by the end of today. It did not happen. I don't know if that means it's coming tomorrow, so we'll wait to see where that goes. But all of this uncertainty is bundling into budget uncertainty, because 2 weeks from today, Mark Carney's government will present its first budget. Finance Minister Champagne will do that, and it will need the support of at least one opposition party to pass it. And right now, Government House Leader Steven MacKinnon is worried that might not happen.
When I see opposition parties not ruling out the possibility of voting for the budget, that's starting to worry me, but I think it's them that are misreading the mood of Canadians. If an election is necessary, we would obviously, reluctantly, because we don't think Canadians want an election, but election there will be.
The question of whether there's an election is entirely up to Mr. Carney. As the leader of a government with a minority in Parliament, it's up to him to craft a budget that can win the support of at least one opposition party. If Mr. Carney provides a budget that no party can support, we'll go take our fight to the Canadian people.
Okay, Gary, you used to be the Chief of Staff to a House Leader. Is this real, or what is this? Is this just a bit of posturing on the way into Cabinet, or is Steven MacKinnon really worried they will not have a dance partner to deal with the budget?
I know Halloween is like 11 days away, but government house leaders a really terrible Halloween costume. It doesn't really scare anybody. There's a lot of fear mongering going on here by Mr. MacKinnon. We are not going to an election. And of course, you know, when I think about Mr. Davies said, he's right on one front in the fact that it is up for the government to find a dance partner somewhere along the lines. But the other reality too is that dance partner probably is it might be fairly cheap right now, because you know, a year and a half ago, the NDP were talking about our demands include, you know, dental care, pharmacare, you know, billions of dollars expenditures. Now they're talking about like, well, we could use a little money for the Research Bureau, right? Like, I don't think this is going to be a tough sell if they need to do it, and you know, expect too that you know, if the numbers are actually that tight. I would suspect that parliamentary flu season could be spreading. So I am not worried about this in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of spin coming from Steven MacKinnon, who's a good spinner, but let's be honest here.
Okay, so Cheryl, that's where I wanted to go next. It is cold and flu season, and you know, in all the votes that come after the 4th of November, it is easy to see certain members of Parliament just not showing up for votes. And so you don't have to vote for it, you don't have to abstain, you're just not there. I mean, there is no credible way any opposition party is going to stare at this government at this moment of time and dare them to table a budget and face a non-confidence vote. Do you see it? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, there is one thing that all parties agree on, and you've heard it in all of their rhetoric around this, which is Canadians do not want an election right now. So that essentially leaves all parties with two options. One is that they come to the table with the things that they want in the budget, as the government has invited them and said, put the things you want in here, make it easier for you to support it. But let's all remember how that tactic worked out for the NDP in the last election. So maybe not a lot of interest in adding their things to the budget and then voting for it. The other thing is, as you said, David, is abstain. Perhaps not the most politically courageous move, but it is a way for parties to say, we cannot support this budget, but we also are not ready to bring down the government. And there are times when it's worth putting posturing aside and to hold the country together. And at a time when we are in the midst of a tense trade negotiation with our closest trading ally, now feels like probably the right time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Sabrina, this is what I wonder about. Like, I don't know what prompted Steven MacKinnon to bring this up, whether he was asked about it, but he was pretty emphatic that he has concerns about this. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But with the Trump negotiations, with the trade war, with the auto sector bleeding out, with steel and aluminum and all the other places in chaos, Poilievre facing a leadership review at the end of January, and the NDP leaderless and in a race. I mean, come on, everybody. Like, this is going to happen, right? And let's just stop it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to Minister MacKinnon's defense, it didn't really sound like he was doing that ministerial freestyling that they tend to do when they're walking into cabinet, right? It sounded like he was either asked about it or had this sort of idea that he wanted to get across. But yeah, look, I think to Cheryl's point, nobody really wants an election right now in terms of like the Canadian electorate, right? So I think it would be a mistake to go to the polls so soon. I can certainly see why there might be certain Liberals that might want one, given we're only a few seats shy, like 3 seats shy, I think, of a majority. So it can be tempting to want to go back to the polls, right? And basically then make the entire election about needing a majority mandate to deal with the current threat environment, whether we're talking about, economically or geopolitically. But there's an obvious risk there if nobody really wants that. And I think, if the opposition parties were smart, they would take a page from what Don Davies said right there and kind of flip the onus back onto the government.
Yeah.
That if they do want to actually pass a budget, then it's incumbent upon them to craft a budget in mind that one of the opposition parties can likely support.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ministerial freestyling anymore after that first week after the first cabinet when ministers were weighing in on things that weren't in their job. And, I'm in Heritage now, but let's talk pipelines. Sure. That's not the way this government rolls. But I wonder, Emily, how do you then calibrate your political calculus here? Because there is this collision of the larger national interests in this time of great economic uncertainty and then the political self-interest of all the various actors, in various caucuses and in Parliament itself. I mean, what do you think Canadians expect to see out of parliamentarians in a moment like this as the normal games of a minority parliament are going to play out on their television screens?
To begin with, the fact that Pierre Poilievre is having a really bad week, I think is telling us a little bit of the answer to your question in terms of what Canadians expect when you do have a discourse that is about we should be putting Justin Trudeau in jail and whatnot. This is and calling out the RCMP. This has been creating some turmoil, both in terms of reactions from other parties and also within the Conservatives Party, because I guess it is a way to test where is the line in the sand. And where, in terms of tones, in terms of contributions, what kind of a position people want and what kind of a position do not want. And so in that way, it is way beyond Pierre Poilievre. It's also a warning to any other party that would be tempted to adopt a more Trumpian state of mind when it comes to attacking other parties. Now, when it comes to the actual budget, I do believe that it is on the government to propose something that can be adopted by other parties, and that it is on them to actually try to reach across the aisle and do things seriously because they're in control of the agenda. And so, if they don't do it, and then say that the opposition is being terrible, I think a lot of Canadians will be able to also see through that and see a different kind of pettiness than the sort of I go on podcasts and I call out my adversaries, but it would still be a level of unproductive politics that, frankly, a lot of people have zero time for right now.
Yeah, it's been a weird news narrative week for the former Prime Minister. He's on a yacht with Katy Perry in some coverage and resurrecting old scandals to throw him in jail in the other news stream. But, such is life in 2025 for Justin Trudeau. But Gary Keller, to bring it back to the parliamentary debate question and the vote question, how do the Conservatives approach this? Do they just kind of hope the NDP abstain and sort of take them off the hook? Because you see Pierre Poilievre, as he tries to reassert himself there, attacking Mark Carney for failing to live up to expectations and promise and all this. But, if you plunge the country into an election before anything is done with Trump, it's potentially a problem. So how do you deal with that if you're the opposition?
Yeah, and I don't think these things are done in a vacuum or a silo. I'm sure opposition parties are talking to each other over and over again. I also think that, and I think the Conservatives were the first out of the boat saying that they wouldn't be able to, or not likely support a budget. There's a little bit of timing and math around this. I remember when I was in government and I was chief staff of the government House leader, and we're having these negotiations. Jack Layton was always very effective, being the first opposition leader coming out of the gate, saying, I can't support this Harper budget, right? And what it did is it put the onus all on Michael Ignatieff, who was always left holding the bag. Will you not support it? What's your position? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me like the NDP are probably the last ones to have commented on this, so they might be in the position of holding the bag. But I think an elegant solution will be found in this, where people will vote against the budget, but it just squeaked by the skin of the teeth. And so I am downplaying these things. I am not thinking that this is going down a certain path. But full marks for the government for trying to raise the stakes on it.
But Cheryl, I wasn't here when Jack Layton was the leader of the opposition, but people who were remind me that he had a very good relationship with Jim Flaherty. They would talk at the parliamentary gym and all these things, and there was that nonpartisan interaction. That doesn't happen in this city anymore, right? So you could end up in a situation where just the real divisions lead to an accidental problem, and that's something you have to guard against, because there's not a lot of House leaders talk, but there's not a lot of love on Parliament Hill right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reflection in Parliament. It's a reflection in society. Even a decade ago, it wasn't unheard of to have people of different political stripes sort of come together to say, how do we find a solution to this problem that maybe everybody doesn't get their way, but it's in the best interest of our electorate? That happens less and less now because, one, that doesn't make a great TikTok clip or a great Instagram clip. And that's what is driving votes these days, is like those clippable, divisive moments. That's where the electorate's at, unfortunately. And so coming together for the good of the people just isn't winning political points. And I think that's what we're seeing in this budget as well, is like, yes, the NDP did great, wonderful things pushing pharmacare and dental care in the last election cycle, but they got absolutely no credit for it. And I think when parties look at that in this instance and say, okay, we could go make a deal with the Liberal government, get some great things, do some things that our base wants, but in the end, people don't remember that it was the opposition parties that pushed for that.
Okay, Cheryl, we're going to have to let that be the last word, because Wayne Long, the Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency, is in the building, and we got to talk about the Auditor General's findings, so we got to get him into the chair. Thank you so much to the Power Panel, Emily Nicola, Supriya Dwivedi, Gary Keller. Good to see you. It's been a minute, Gary, and Cheryl Oates. Thanks so much, gang.